All right, so today we are going to quickly, well, probably about 10 minutes, talk about Iran. I believe I was going to do the heroine's journey because someone commented that on my last video, and I wasn't really sure if it was in support or not. It's kind of ambiguous. But either way, Iran got uppity, so let's talk about Iran. So if you haven't heard, Iran had, or is at least accused of, implementing a drone strike and a cruise missile strike against one of the largest oil-producing areas, oil-producing refineries, sorry, in Saudi Arabia. So, for those of you who don't know some background about these countries, Saudi Arabia and Iran are obviously two of the larger powers in the Middle East. The third one was Iraq, but with Saddam Hussein being disposed now for a better part of a decade, nothing has really filled the void in Iraq, and they have a lot of infighting, sectarian violence, and, well, they just don't get along. Beyond the tribal reasons, there's also issues of the north and the south. It's just not a area that can be stable. So that leaves the two powers, Iran and Iraq, or Iran and Saudi Arabia. Iran being more of the, I guess, militaristic power in the area. They have a fairly good navy and a fairly good air force relative to the size of the country. And Saudi Arabia, which is the economic power in the area. So this matters for the U.S., obviously, because Donald Trump, well, when he did his sort of world foreign policy shindig, he toted two big things, which was reforming or strengthening ties and alliances with Japan and Saudi Arabia. If you guys remember when Trump went to Saudi Arabia in juxtaposition because Obama had the minor scandal where he sort of bowed, or maybe didn't bow, to the Saudi king, and everybody got very upset. Well, Trump is a showman, and Trump did what Trump does, and had these Saudis, put American flags on all their little cars, and put projectors up to put American flags on the buildings and everything when he came in. So he was basically announcing, hey, we are backing Saudi Arabia in the region. They're a stable power, even if they are a dictatorship, technically an oligarchy, I think. But so Trump basically has to support his ally in whatever they want to do. And he's come out publicly and said that, or in as much. Now, whatever the Saudis want to do in response to Iran actually attacking one of their refineries, they're probably going to have to go through us. I seriously doubt they would take any sort of serious military intervention without checking with the United States about whether that was going to piss us off or whether or not we were going to back them with military or funding or whatever. So, Trump has, in my opinion at least, four options that he can take in regards to how he wants to deal with Iran drone striking the oil refinery in Saudi Arabia. And I'll go through them from least likely to most likely. The first option, which I think is the least likely for him to do, is essentially to do nothing. It's to tweet about it. He gets on Twitter and says this was a huge mistake by Iran. They're barking up the wrong tree with me. They need to remember America is great and we will defend our allies. And that's essentially the end of it. He says it's an election year. Election is coming up. The election debates are already ramping up, obviously. And I just can't afford to get into sort of any military action at this point. It's going to make me a target for the Democrats. I don't think he's going to do this because I think it makes him sound too much like Obama. And he is all about making this contrast between him and how he does things and how Bush did things and how, well, he does things. He's sort of this, I'm not a neocon, I'm not a liberal, I'm just going to look out for America's interests. That's his whole shindig. So I don't think he's going to back down and just say after, the phenomenal success he's had on the world stage and just sort of lets Iran get away with it. His third option, which I think is also unlikely, but could happen, obviously, would be a full-scale war with Iran. Now, this probably wouldn't happen with the U.S. just unilaterally declaring war on Iran. It would probably be something like the Saudis say, well, we do want to take heavy military action, and the Saudis go a little heavier than we thought. They put troops on the ground, they put tanks in, they blitzkrieg across, and just invade Iran. And Trump says something publicly beforehand like, I'm going to back whatever they do, and now he's stuck. And he says, well, screw it, Iran was always on the list anyway. There's still probably some neocon segments left in the intelligence community and the military. Iran was always a target for them anyway. I forgot to mention earlier, Iran also has a very large population of 18 to 30-year-olds because there was a huge population boom in the late 80s and early 90s because they thought they were going to go to war with either the Soviets or Iraq again. They wanted soldiers for that. Well, they didn't end up going to war with either of them, and now they have a huge population of kids who don't really agree with the hegemony and the Islamic hardliners in Iran. So he could just go the neocon route and say, yeah, well, this was the excuse. Saudi Arabia is going in. We are going to invade, and we're going to try Iraq over again. I think he's not going to do that because he has backtracked before on a lot, but this would be a huge backtrack for him to say, yeah, I'm going the neocon route. This was my plan all along. The third most likely, and this is what I would do. I don't think this is what he will do. But what I would do, I know this sounds a little weird, is I would actually blockade Iran. Economic sanctions, they're already under economic sanctions. You're really not going to do much by imposing more sanctions on them. That's what he could do with the tweets, right? I'm imposing new economic sanctions on Iran. You're essentially doing nothing because they're already hurting. That's why they did this in the first place. And also it's going to get you in trouble because you're just going to open yourself up for the line of attack that, well, they wouldn't have done this if you didn't put sanctions on them in the first place. This is why Obama had to deal with them. This is why he gave them money. He literally paid them off because he was trying to alleviate the sanctions and not cause this kind of behavior from Iran. And I think Trump's smart enough to avoid that. So instead of doing nothing, what I would do, or more sanctions, is hurt them economically through a blockade and just, well, pin them in. They don't actually have a whole lot of area to defend. I can't remember what the area is called, but it's the Strait of something in Iran. Yeah, the Strait of Hormuz in Iran. It's essentially where all of their shipping goes through. You have a blockade there, stop them from getting any money, any shipments from oil for a couple weeks, couple months, whatever, and really put the hurt on them. This is essentially doing an economic sanction, but you're backing it with military force. It's a bigger show. It makes Trump look good, and it's just a very Trump-esque thing to do. That's what I would do if I were him. Why I think he won't do that? Essentially, again, I think Trump is going to actually try to play a little politics here. He is very good at playing the politics, and I don't think he's going to give any sort of target of being a warmonger back to the Democrats, especially when he had the wonderful look of, having peace sort of brokered between North Korea and South Korea. I think he's going to keep playing that shtick. And on that note, what I think he will do to keep playing that shtick is essentially take a playbook right out of the Obama administration. I think he's just going to drone strike them. Instead of doing a blockade or more sanctions, he's going to say, well, I have drones, and Obama used drones all the time. I'm just going to strike one of their bases. I'm going to strike the base the missiles came from. I'm going to strike one of their oil refineries back. We're going to hit them hard, fast, get out, no lives, no military power needed other than the couple drones and the couple missiles we launched, which they won't be able to stop anyway. And the reason I think Trump will do this is because it's such an easy line for him to beat up on Obama again. Obama did drone strikes nonstop, constantly. He turned the war into the war of drones. And if he says, well, finally someone hurts one of our allies, thanks guys, and I do a drone strike like Obama, this is the media being dishonest again. The lying media is trying to paint me like some sort of warmonger when I'm just doing what Obama did. And I think it's going to be an easy win for him to just simply do that and walk away with it with his hands clean. So that's what I think he's going to do out of doing, obviously, nothing, full-scale war, blockade, which is what I would do, and then drone striking Iran. This was a really quick one. I just wanted to get that out of the way because it was a really cool, or well, not cool topic. It's never fun when someone gets drone striked, obviously. But it was a hot-button topic, so I wanted to get that out of the way. I'll probably end up doing something more storyline-based on the heroine's journey, maybe tomorrow or the day after. So, catch you guys later.